morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Unspoken Truth. I'm the founder of Mutual Respect and the host, Daniel, and just a quick reminder that everything you see on my podcast is strictly for educational purposes. And today it's an absolute privilege to welcome back someone who genuinely needs no introduction to anyone serious about men's rights in this country. Sue Price is, without exaggeration, Australia's First Lady of the men's rights movement. For decades, she has stood firm when it wasn't popular, when it wasn't safe, and when doing so came at a personal and professional cost. Long before these conversations were allowed into the public arena, Sue was already there advocating, documenting, connecting dots, and refusing to let men and boys be erased from the national conversation. I want to express my sincere gratitude to Sue for her decades of unwavering support, her depth of knowledge, and her willingness to share not just information, but networks, history, and hard-earned insight. The work she's done has quietly empowered countless advocates, informed policy debates, and given voice to men who would otherwise have been left unheard. Sue's contribution isn't just advocacy, it's legacy. And without people like her laying the groundwork, many of us wouldn't even be standing at the table today. Sue, thank you for your courage, your consistency, and for never walking away from men, from fathers, from boys and families when they needed someone to stand their ground. How are you going today, young lady?
I'm going very well, and that was a beautiful introduction, Daniel.
I meant every word, so...
Thank you, I do appreciate it. It's very nice, but I want to also say you are doing a great job as well.
Well,
and
thank you.
Been here for quite some time now, and a lot of meaningful issues that you've covered. And that's what's needed. We need people like you talking out about and spreading the word. That's where we've fallen down over the number of years. But that's where we're waking up. I hope so.
Yeah, well, thank you. And as we've spoken about off camera, it's if men are able to express what they've been through and share the stories and the nightmares, then it makes it that little bit easier for any other poor bugger that's dragged into the system moving forward.
It prevents us talking about what's going on in the courts, what's happening with families, how they're being broken apart, and that's essential. This should be the discussion of the year, of the decade, because it's so important that we keep families together. But they seem to be so intent on breaking them apart, putting the children with mum, send dad out to work, pay the child support. Oh, you can't see your children. No, you can't. No, it's not convenient, because 100% of care means you get 100% of child support. I always question this part with the politicians, and we hear so many politicians now saying, oh, I'm here for the women, I'm going to do this for women, that for women. Come on, they're supposed to be elected to represent people, not just women.
Yeah.
And they don't do that.
No, well said. And for all these people out there that do rely on political avenues, let me just explain something that took me a long time to get my head around. Is Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party is the only one consistently that you will see in parliamentary talk about men's and boys and fathers' issues. However, I hope someone from One Nation is watching this, because when you try to cross-reference these public opinions that Pauline has, there's absolutely nothing that reflects in their policies. So for all the other and for all the public talk, they don't do. There is one policy that mentions how important families is, but there's nothing that outlines how important fathers and men and boys are to society, to families, to a functioning society. But yet publicly they state these things. They just don't reflect it in the policies, because, like a politician will tell you openly, if we talk about men's or fathers' issues, we're going to lose the women's vote. So it's about time men started to realise that if we start voting in blocks, we have a lot more power. And until we do, they're just going to keep oppressing us. They're going to keep pushing us to the back, saying, sit down and shut up. We'll do what we want to you.
Well, that's what happened when Howard got in the last time. The men changed their vote. They became the swinging voters, and I think it was something like 6% voted for Howard. That got him over the line. And that's when, of course, he realised that something needed to be done for families, and that's when he introduced that inquiry. I think it was Kay Hull who managed that one, and they introduced the shared parental responsibility. Act, which again, it recognised that fathers should be involved in their child's upbringing, fathers and mothers, and it was working. So what does Labor do as soon as they get in? They roll it out. They chuck it out. Well, fathers don't matter. That's got nothing to do with families or children.
You know, it's funny you bring that up, Sue, because I've got a graph at my disposal that outlines that's the only time since the inception of family court that the male suicide rate has declined. So they knew, statistically, they very well bloody knew that when you stop stealing a man's purpose, being his family and his children, he can survive through a breakup. But the second that you steal the parental alienation is one of the most inhumane forms of abuse, not just for the children, but for the parent that has to suffer it as well.
The grandparents,
Yeah, exactly. It's one half of the whole family that all of a sudden gets erased from the child's upbringing. And in turn, you know, if you know that this is taking place and you're complicit, well, the Labor Party, in my opinion, has blood on their hands. They are the destructive movement that has targeted destroying the family unit. No doubt about it.
I agree with you entirely, Daniel. I can't fathom where their logic comes from, apart from the fact it's control. They would rather see men and women separate, because certainly together and complementary to each other, we are much stronger. But Labor works out that, if we're on our own, the government will look after the women, the men can look after themselves, and we'll have all the power and control we need. And that's how it works, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But no thought for families, no thought for what's happening with our children. And that's the tragedy.
Well, and you know what I do think too, Sue, on a bigger picture is once you weaken a nation's men, once you destabilise these blokes, we've spoke about this too, where most men we both speak to say, well, why in the hell would I fight for this country after what they've done for me? So to do a global agenda and a population replacement program is a hell of a lot easier to do when the country's men are just so destabilised they won't fight back.
You're quite right, absolutely right, and that's what we've seen happening, unfortunately. And we are changing our structure. We're no longer the Aussies that we used to be. We can't help it, you know. They just keep bringing new people in who don't accept our way of life, who don't accept our values. Why are we doing it? It just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, well, common sense has been thrown out the window. There's no doubt about that.
I would have to second that, definitely, because it doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. But, you know, we're stuck with it at the moment but we're starting to see people talking about it, starting to see people complaining about it, which is what's needed.
If men account for around 3/4 of all suicides, yet still no minister for men, if women were dying at those types of rates, would a parliamentary secretary position be considered as an adequate response, do you think?
No, I don't think so. You're quite right there. They'd want a full investigation. It's about relationship of domestic violence, family and sexual violence, and suicide. But in the term of reference, nothing mentioned about men. Now, isn't that strange?
Very strange how they're selectively choosing their words. Even in a recent interview I done with Draz Barrage from the 47 podcast, he outlined how boys are now being left out of the terminology of children.
Oh, God.
You know, it's bloody ludicrous to think that, and I have said this in a past interview as well, that it's a disgusting situation when you've got to look at your son and daughter and realise because your son was born with testicles, he has less basic human rights than your daughter. But that's the reality that they've created.
That is the reality, absolutely. And of course, this is another expensive investigation. It closed apparently on the 30th, but I managed to find out that they have extended the date for submissions to go in until the 13th of February. So I would encourage anybody who's got anything to say about this to get on their computer and type out a letter, type out something about your own experience and send it in and let them know what's going on from your point of view, because that's what's needed.
Well, and you're dead right, because like we touched on at the start, Sue, that until blokes start owning up and telling the truth of the nightmare situation we're being faced to live, we just don't understand, because men have this, I suppose it's a self-defense mechanism. When you're being put through a bullshit situation or a nightmare scenario, you just want to compartmentalize it, lock it up, push it to the back of the head and forget that it ever happened. But what you're doing by doing that and not sharing knowledge to the next poor bastard is he's walking in there blind, thinking that he's actually got equal rights and a fair say. So we need to start expressing, and like David Maywald touched in the past, until men are comfortable and collected in calling out misandry and double standards, this shit show will roll on and keep coercing men into suicide. So men need to find their backbone and start expressing their personal opinion publicly. But and as we've spoke about as well, Sue, that the baton has to be passed on. Yous have done a great job for decades now, but we need some of the younger generation to step into the limelight and start calling out the bullshit when we see it. And you do have to be a strong character these days to speak about men's and fathers' issues, because you will be targeted. They will come after you, won't they?
Yeah, they try to cancel you, which is very easy these days, and it's no difficulty at all. So it's one of the techniques that they use, and it can be, of course, devastating for you if you're in a job or anything like that. If you're not self-sufficient, you can lose your job, you can lose your livelihood, you can lose your family, because you're speaking out about issues that they don't want to hear about.
No, exactly right. And we've got policy outcomes that if decades of women-only funding were working as a claim, why are family violence rates, relationship breakdowns and child trauma increasing rather than decreasing?
That's a very interesting question, and it's one that I've been toying with, because we have no confirmation that the money is being spent where it should be, or that it's doing any good. Because if the numbers are increasing, what does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. It's not working. And at what point does the government admit that it's failing and rebalance policies to include fathers and boys and the family structure?
We have argued right from the very beginning that in domestic violence and those issues, they are only ever looking at one side, one half. They're not looking at the other half. And we know that there are some men who are violent, but there are a lot of women who are violent as well. But there's no services. We don't say, oh, women need to go for anger management. Women need to realize what they're doing that's wrong, or need psychological assistance, or something like that, or punishment if it's that bad. And we certainly know that they kill more children. And they are, I think, according to the WA figures, there's something like 73% of child abuse is committed by women.
Yeah.
It's a pretty high figure.
Well, and the highest percentage of interpersonal relationship violence is attributed to lesbian couples, and that's 27.7%.
That's right. I was going to say 27. That came out in the first ABS study.
I think
that they did. Yeah, I remember that. Very, very valid and very, very true. So they can't keep saying that women are just victims. Women are perpetrators as well.
And a quick offshoot is recently there was that female pedophile. Now I was shocked to read this. This woman was excused. She didn't have to attend court. She's still out on bail, and the wording and the terminology used from the media articles are an absolute fucking disgrace. If you're a dirty, rotten child abuser, then that's what you should be labelled as. Not tiptoe around using suggestive wording that, she didn't do anything too wrong other than have a child and sexual intercourse with an underage minor, because a man or a woman that commits this sort of heinous crime should receive the full extent of the law, irrespective of the gender. But I think it shows the double standards in the legal system, Sue, because no way would a male pedophile be treated in the way this female one has?
Oh, I think it's well recognised that the media treat the two stories differently. Like if it's a man who rapes a child or something like that, it'll be front page for several days. And they'll go into the full detail and they'll tell everybody about it, everything about him and the family. So, but if it's a woman, they'll page 5, something like that, page 4 in the gutter. So you don't, a little paragraph, and that's about it. That's what you'll see. So they do treat them differently. It was like the woman from Cairns, I think she kills either 7 or 8 children.
Yes.
And we heard virtually nothing about it afterwards, but I think she was put into a mental health situation. And of course she'll be in there for a few years, no doubt, but that'll be it.
I'll go further. I think they deliberately try to excuse extremely violent or sexual behaviours from females. They try to hide it under the carpet.
I'm sure they do. We've seen it. We've seen it happen. So, it's illogical. It's just confirming what we know, that all they want is the money. They want the status. They want to be able to say, we're important, the government listens to us. Look at all the money they give us. And, $8 billion is a lot of dough.
Yeah.
So it keeps a lot of people going. So, and men don't get anywhere near that. Absolutely.
But I mean, a legal system that can differentiate based on the perpetrator's gender is not a legal system that hasn't been dragged into disrepute, because if you've got a political ideology that's infiltrated and that says you need to treat a man and a woman differently, even if the merits of the case are exactly the same, then what sort of legal system do you truly have?
Well, it's not true, is it? Because it's what the Americans classify as being feminist jurisprudence, because they've put a lot of work into influencing the courts, influencing the legislation to be able to say, oh, you can't say that about a woman. No, you must understand that there's more problems that they're facing, so you can't do that. It's like what we do with the domestic violence here. I know of no other instance whereby a group of women or trainers will go into the court, into the magistrates' court, and instruct magistrates and other staff how they should view domestic violence against a woman.
And
what's all that?
Here's a left curve question for you, Sue. How humorous is this, if it wasn't so serious, of course? The very fact that none of these fucking politicians can tell us what a real woman is.
But they did have a lot of trouble, didn't they?
Oh, God. We don't know what a woman is, but we're going to allocate $8 billion worth of funding for them just to make sure they're safe.
Yeah, that's right. It's crazy. Crazy situation. I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but if we keep talking about it, we keep encouraging other men and other women as well. There are a lot of women now who are starting to realise the damage that's being done to their sons, to their grandsons, to their fathers, to their uncles, their brothers. And they now understand what's going on. And that's where you'll find a lot of support coming in. Yeah. So, we just need to encourage them.
As we've spoke about, men and women complement each other. The sooner we get back to that, the sooner society benefits. Yeah. So for all this gender divide bullshit that's out there, yes, we need women to stand up for men, but we need men to find their backbone and their balls and start voicing their opinions again.
Well, I think the problem is they've had years of denigration, of being told they're useless, being told they're violent, being told they're angry, what good are you, and all this sort of thing. Like when you've got people like Clementine Ford sort of saying, have you killed a man today, or how many men have you killed today? That is appalling. Yeah. Now that's a typical hate speech. Why haven't they arrested her already?